Trait number 1, a super teacher, super teachers, controls the classroom. And this is number 1 for a very important reason. You can be the best teacher in the world in terms of your knowledge. You can be a genius in chemistry, in math, in English, in science, in any subject. You can be the top of your class in college. You can be a Nobel Prize recipient. You can also have charisma. You can also have great teaching skills. You can also be lots of good things. But if you cannot control your classroom, you will not be able to deliver any of your teaching, any of your knowledge. So number 1, a super teacher controls the classroom. How does a super teacher control the classroom? What does a super teacher do? And what hints do I have for you all? Let's discuss. Number 1, teachers must establish an orderly classroom before they can teach effectively. You see, if you have a great car, and you can all see that I have great artistic skills. So you have a very good car. This is a car. And you have very good wheels on the car. You have a great car, which is your classroom. You have great wheels, which is your knowledge. But you're missing one little thing. You're missing a steering wheel. Do you think you can drive this car if you don't have a steering wheel? You can't. And that's exactly what controlling the classroom is. It's the steering wheel that you use to drive. It's the steering wheel that you will use to deliver your class effectively. So you have to have an orderly classroom, a classroom under your control, not under anybody else's control, before you can begin to teach effectively. All right. Super teachers prepare for classroom disruptions before they happen. And this is something I know a lot of teachers find really strange. And at first, when we say this point, they don't really understand how I can prepare for classroom disruptions, for control problems before they even happen. What do you think? Let me know. Let's discuss this a bit. Come on, help me out here, super teachers. If you're attending this training live, help me out in the comments in the live chat. If you're attending this as a video, you can comment on the video and let me know what you think. Now, how do you think a super teacher can prepare for classroom disruptions, for problems with classroom control before they even begin? How can you be ready before classroom disruptions happen? Let me know what you think. Come on. So I'm going to read some answers that I'm getting, and I want you guys to please help me out with more. So number 1, we have an answer. Imagine the activities and how students will deal with these activities. So in other words, when you plan an activity for your classroom, anticipate. Imagine, what will they do? How will they be seated? What will their interaction be during that activity? And then what disruptions could happen? Good. Another one, set classroom rules. Excellent. That's a great one. You know there's going to be disruption. You know there's going to be control problems with your classroom. So you need to put effective rules in your classroom before you can even begin teaching. Good. The class should be student-centered. Yes, we're going to discuss this. Very important. Your class should always be centered around your students, not around yourself. Thank you. Involve them more in activities. So get your students to be involved in activities and not be passively sitting down and just listening to you. Good. We have another one. Teachers plan the lessons well and mention anticipated problems from different levels. That's a very good one. So when you have your lesson plan, when you're planning your lesson, you should also write notes of what disruptions you think may happen during class. And of course, this goes without saying, and trying to write the solution to these problems so you don't forget. All right. What else do we have? We have a lot here. Okay. You guys are geniuses. Okay. I need many plans to attract their attention. Okay. So I need to always have their attention so that disruptions don't happen. Good. Keep the students busy, especially the clever ones. Yes. So keep them busy, because some students, especially clever ones, like you just said, when they have extra time, they have nothing to do, they finished the work that they need to do, they will start disrupting your classroom because they have nothing better to do. Yes. Start by some physical activities to break the ice. So especially with younger kids, lower grades, have them do some physical activity at the beginning to let out their energy and then settle them down. Try to get their attention using games. So we call this gamification, and prizes or rewards. Good. Make activities and games in order to pay attention for all students. So make sure everybody's paying attention and reward them for this attention. I love this one. Always put a plan B. This is so, so nice. And this is something I always do in my classes. I always put a plan B and a plan C. So this is my lesson. This is how I think it's going to work, but I know it's not going to work as perfectly as I want it to every single time. So what I do is I have a plan B. If this fails, what am I going to do? If this fails, what am I going to do? Excellent. Have a good lesson plan, a classroom routine. This is called being consistent. We're going to discuss this today. Voice and choice plan. I don't know who is familiar with voice and choice. If you are, let me know here, please. Maybe we'll discuss this later. Engaging the class in activities. Perfect. Pay attention to students at all times. So always make sure that you are on top of their heads and that you know they are being as attentive as possible to prevent any disruptions. Okay, so you all have excellent ideas. We're going to stop here and let's move on to what I have for you all. But this is so good. You are all geniuses. And let me tell you something. One of the very important benefits of a masterclass like this one and our courses in general is that you not only get to learn or hear what I have to say, but we also get to learn from each other. We also get to get ideas from each other. We brainstorm together. And this is so important because nobody can give you advice on how to teach effectively better than teachers who are in your same situation, who are actually on the ground, in the classroom, teaching and struggling and finding solutions to problems every day. This is the best way to learn. It's much better than just reading books or watching videos, actually learning from each other. So thank you, everybody, for your participation here. Let's move on, and then we will discuss again together as we move along. All right. Okay. Now, we stopped here. We said super teachers prepare for classroom disruptions before they happen. And please, everybody, this is so important, especially the part before, okay? And let me know really quickly, please, in the comments in the chat, and also if you are attending this training as a video on our teachable platform on our website, please let me know. This is so important to me. Who here is a new teacher, meaning a teacher who will start teaching for the first time this year or just started teaching a few months ago, a year ago? Just let me know. This is so important. Thank you. So new teachers especially never prepare for classroom disruptions before they happen. They always prepare their subject. They always prepare their lesson. They prepare maybe their quizzes, their worksheets, but they never prepare for disruptions. They just go into the classroom and then try to deal with disruptions as they happen. Now, it's so important to be ready before they happen. How? By imagining likely scenarios. And here, I'm going to change the word imagining to anticipating. Anticipating. Okay? You should anticipate. you should imagine, you should think of what the likely scenarios of student misbehavior will be before they occur. So you should sit down while you prepare your lesson at home and think, in this particular part of my lesson, I will ask the students who finished their task on the board to go back to their seats. And I will ask the next group of students to come up to the board and do their task. You need to think, what could go wrong during this process? As these students finish and go back, and then these students go up and come here, what could go wrong? Once you think about this really well, you will discover that a lot of things can go wrong in this particular part of your lesson. And thus, you should re-plan this part. You should always keep all students busy at all times. Never keep any group of students free, have nothing to do, because they will disrupt your class. Or by seeking the advice of veteran teachers. So veteran here means old warriors, people who have experience, teachers who have been teaching for many years, who are more experienced than yourself. Now, of course, let me just say this really quickly. Sometimes a younger teacher can have more experience. A less experienced teacher than yourself can have more experience dealing with classroom disruptions. So it's always good to seek advice from different teachers, different subjects, different grade levels of different ages. And don't just think that you need to seek advice from the older or the oldest teacher in the room. And this is very important. So talk with teachers during break, whenever you all have some kind of free time, discuss this like we're doing now. What do you think I can do when I have such and such activity in my classroom? I have a bunch of students who always do the same thing when I do so and so. I'm afraid that this student is going to disrupt my class by doing so and so and so. What do you think I should do? And get ideas and try and test until you master classroom control, okay? But remember, the earlier you start, the better, because, and this is so important, so important. Let's all write this down, please. Write this down, please. Classroom control. Write it down, everybody. Classroom control must be established early. There you go. So control must be early. You cannot control your classroom. You cannot control your classroom during the year. You cannot control your classroom after you have lost control of the classroom. You can only control your classroom early in the year, during your first class of the year, your second class of the year. The later you try to control your classroom, the more difficult it will be, almost impossible, to control the classroom later on. Okay? Now, let me just tell you one thing, and I don't know if you all will agree with me or not, so help me out here, please, whether live or on video, with your comments. I believe that trying to push through the school year in a classroom that you can't control is a major reason for teacher burnout. It's a major reason for teachers to quit teaching. It's a major reason for teachers to hate teaching. It's a major reason for teachers to have a very hard time doing their job. Do you agree? One of the worst things that can happen to you as a teacher is to push through the year one more day, one more week, one more month inside a classroom you can't control. Do you agree? It's the worst thing that can happen. Yes. Yes. Yes, for sure. I agree. I'm reading your comments. Yes. It's terrible. It will kill you. So don't fall into that trap. Start the year. Control the classroom. Don't fall into this trap. Don't fall into the trap of just pushing through the year and taking one class at a time. It's terrible. Okay? All right. I see some people have some questions, and we will discuss in just a bit. So let's just finish this first. Thank you all. The best way to prevent classroom misbehavior, take a look at this, is to eliminate the opportunity for it to happen. And this is so, so important. And if you just get this little point from everything we'll be discussing in this masterclass, I think you will have benefited greatly. The best way to prevent classroom misbehavior is to eliminate, to cancel the opportunity for the misbehavior to even happen. So I know that I have two students, X and Y. X and Y are either very good friends or are very good enemies. X and Y will always talk together, joke together, hit each other, I don't know what, but they will always be doing things together in my class, as I teach, and will disrupt my classroom. I know this. You either know it before you even see these students by talking to teachers who were teaching these students last year. And this is something so important that we'll discuss in another masterclass. It's how you can get hints about the students in your class this year, the new year, by talking to teachers who taught them the previous year. This is so important before you even begin. So anyway, you know that you have two problem children here, all right, X and Y, either from information you got from other teachers or from your observation, one way or the other, you know they're problematic. Do not, under any circumstance, seat them next to each other in your classroom. Just eliminate the opportunity for the misbehavior to happen. Find the two farthest points in your class and seat these two students as far apart as possible from each other. Okay? Also, when you make your lesson plan, when you write your lesson plan, it's not just about what you want to teach. It should always be about classroom control. So anything I put in my lesson plan that gives the opportunity for classroom disruption, misbehavior to happen, eliminate it, take it away from your lesson plan. There is no benefit from testing this weird grouping in your class and trying to use this new technique that you read about if you know that during this time you will have interaction between students who have nothing to do, who will be disrupting your class. Just eliminate it all together. And here is a very important statement. A properly constructed, student-centered lesson plan, a plan that's all about the students. Because a lot of times when we as teachers make our plans, we always imagine what we'll be doing. And this is so important as well. We'll be discussing this, but we always think about ourselves. So right here, I'm going to explain this. I'm going to use this example. I'm going to ask this question. You're always thinking what you will be doing. You should always be thinking about what the students will be doing during every part of your lesson, okay? Is your best friend. So properly constructed, student-centered lesson plan. And that's why if you think you are a great teacher, so you don't need to plan your lessons, you are wrong. You have to have a lesson plan. You have to. And your lesson plan should become better the more experienced you are. One last thing here, and then I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, everybody. Don't forget to overplan. And let me ask you this question now. You can all help me here in the comments and in the chat, live or video, and then we're going to discuss something. Overplanning. Have you ever, teachers, been in the situation where you basically finished everything you had prepared for the day's lesson? You explained everything, you did everything you had, they finished all the questions, you did all the examples, you had your quiz or your worksheet or whatever, and you look at your watch and there's still 5 more minutes before the bell rings. The class hasn't finished yet. There's still more time, and I finished everything I had prepared for today. Did you ever be in this situation before? Yes or no? Let me know. Who has finished a lesson early and finished everything, and then, oops, we still have more time. What am I going to do? I can see a yes, and another yes, and another yes, and a no, which is great, because the right answer should be no, or the good answer. Yes, yes. Okay. So this is so important because this is where the most classroom disruption will happen. This is exactly how it feels. You finished everything, you're done, and then the students are all looking at you and they're all waiting, and all of a sudden you discover there's still 5 minutes and they are just blank looking at you, waiting for you to say something. And after a few seconds, they realize that you have nothing to say. They realize that you're done. They realize that you finished your ammunition for the day. And now it's their time to take over the class. It's their time to disrupt the class. It's their time to joke, to jump around, to do things that will ruin your class. And it's also the time when you become agitated and you start yelling and shouting and things get out of control. So always, always overplan. Always plan more than you think you can finish. It's better to overplan and not finish than to underplan and finish early. Now, how do you think we can overplan? Let's discuss this together. So let me remind you all, the question is, how do you think we can have extra planning, over planning for our lesson so that we don't end up finishing the lesson early? Give me your suggestions, please. And this could either be something you actually tried before or something you can just think of doing. Let's all help each other out. And even if you're watching this as a video, as I said, you can write comments on the video and I will read some of the tips that we're getting here. So somebody said, let's put a plan B, which is let's play a game. So I have a game that's ready, and this game is something we will play together when we have extra time. Now, of course, let me just elaborate a little bit more. This is a very good strategy, but the game should always be related to what you're teaching. So let's say, for example, you're an English teacher, a teacher of English. You should always have games that have vocabulary, for example, so general vocabulary games that you can put in any extra time throughout the year in general. If you're a science teacher, then maybe some kind of trivia, basic science question quiz game, that would be great as well. So always try to have some kind of game, some kind of activity that is ready for you to use with your students that is related to the subject that you have, and try to make it fun. Okay, we have somebody else saying, I spend free time correcting homework. Now, this is a problem because if you mean marking their homework or looking at their homework individually, the student who you are marking his or her homework will be attentive and will be under control, but the rest of the class will not. So you need a group activity, okay? A group activity. Somebody else is saying, in that time, I listen to the questions from students. Now, I tried this before, okay? I've been teaching for almost 20 years, and I've tried this before where I say, okay, everybody, so we have 5 minutes, and I've finished everything. So now is the time for you to ask your questions. Come on, everybody, raise your hand. Who has a question? And then nobody has a question. Or you have this little annoying kid at the end of the classroom that raises his hand and says, I have a question. How much does the watch you're wearing cost, sir? Something like that. Okay. Why don't you change this jacket? Why do you come to school with the same jacket every day? These are annoying questions that will just have further disruptions. So I don't think it's a good idea to listen to their questions, especially if you're going to take their questions individually. It's better for you to ask them. Okay. For younger kids, we can do exercise or sing together. It depends on how young they are. If they're young enough, 5, 6, 7, maybe years old, doing this kind of group physical activity or singing might be actually a very good idea. You will note, though, that some students will not like this activity. Maybe boys won't want to sing at the end of the classroom. You can have them as your helpers to help you organize the rest of the class and tell each one what to sing and when. So a kind of like a director situation for that student, so he doesn't disrupt your class. Okay, so I prepare for a competition, so maybe some kind of contest between the students. That's good, but again, we want it to be planned so it's not disruptive. Always overplan more activities related to the same lesson. So that's a really nice one. So I have a lesson plan today where, for example, I'm teaching the order of operations in mathematics. So addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, all this, how do we order them? PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. And this is what I taught today, and I'm done. Have an extra quiz, an extra group of questions, an extra activity that has to do with this particular lesson so that you can use in the extra time. Excellent. Okay. Give them a time for dialogue so that we can have some kind of a dialogue. That's good, but we want to engage the whole group, remember, not just individual students. Exit tickets, so that's basically some kind of worksheet that they need to finish so that they can exit the room. That's good as well. Okay, perfect. All right, so here we have a very good answer. It's not really related to the extra work here, but it basically says that we could do verbal questions about what has been explained, formative assessments. That's all great. Games and quizzes, role play, yes. Make a revision. That's good. It's always good to revise if you have extra time. And here's what I do with my revision. This is something I do frequently when I have extra time, is I go over the whole class again. I go over everything I've said. But this time, I just say a little bit and I have them say the rest. Okay, so I say, okay, so the first thing we learned today was so and so and so. So for example, if we have this and this, then we have, okay, your turn. You tell me, what do you think? Is he right? Is he wrong? Raise your hands. And we make it quick and we make it fun and we don't have any pauses so that no disruption happens. That's very good. I can have questions that will prepare them for the next lesson. That's very smart. So I have my lesson today, and then at the end of my plan, I put some extra questions or extra discussion that relates to the lesson we'll be learning next class or next week. So this way, if I have extra time, I can have them prepared and in anticipation for the next lesson. And if you make this in a smart way, where the questions or the discussion you have is actually fun, is actually interesting, you will have them ready for next class. They want to learn what will happen next class. They will be waiting for next class, and that's a very smart strategy. Okay. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, I have here one, ask one of the students to recap. I don't think that's a good idea, because if you ask one student to recap, to tell you what happened today in class, what will happen sometimes is that one student will either get everything right, so you'll have the rest of the students making fun of him of how much of a genius he is and trying to disrupt your class, or you'll have that student, you know, just mix things up and pause and think, and then they'll laugh at him or her. So that will always also make some kind of a disruption. I would prefer some kind of contest, some kind of group recap where you have a lot of people participating at the same time, where you ask the students who are disruptive to help you out instead of putting them under the spotlight and waiting for them to answer so that they disrupt your classroom, things like that. And we will discuss a lot of this, maybe some today and some in future master classes, and definitely in our IEC International Educator Certificate course, we discuss a lot of this together. Okay. Okay, excellent. Now, a good strategy is also ask them what they got from the lesson, what they benefited from today's lesson. That's good, but again, we want it to be in the form of a group or contest-like discussion, not individuals. Okay. All right. So we spent a lot of time here. We still have 5 more, and you people are probably bored. Are you bored already? If you're bored, let me know you're bored in the chat, please. And it's okay to be bored. Just let me know. Say, Mr. K, you are bored. You are boarding. You are boring. Or Mr. G, depends. Okay. And if you're not bored and you're enjoying this, you can tell me in the comments as well. All right. So I'm waiting for anybody to say bored or not bored. Are you bored? Should I continue? Would you like to wrap up today? Is this enough for the masterclass, or should we go on? All right. Okay. So we have not bored and we have go on. All right. So I think this is encouraging. Let's move on. Make lessons enjoyable. And this is so important. Okay. So important. If students enjoy what they are learning, they are more likely to remain focused on the lesson. But please, everybody, please, super teachers, especially younger teachers, please read. If students enjoy what they are learning, not enjoy your performance, not enjoy your jokes, not enjoy your stories, if they enjoy what they are learning. This is so important. A lot of times we have an enjoyable class because the students like hanging out with us, because they laugh at our jokes, because they think we're funny, not because they're enjoying what they're learning. And this is the hard part. As a super teacher, you should make your lesson enjoyable by having them enjoy what they're learning, by having them understand why they're learning it, why it's important, and learn the thing you want to teach them in a way that is enjoyable, that's fun. Okay, this is so important, and we will discuss this further, hopefully in the near future. Think about it. Always, when you make your lesson plan, I want the lesson itself to be enjoyable. And how do you do this? Let me tell you. Imagine that this lesson plan you will give to someone else to teach. You'll give this lesson plan to another teacher to teach. It won't be you standing there. So it's not about you. It's about the lesson itself being enjoyable. All right? Okay, people.